Hi, everyone. My name is Sam Nasser, and this is the Azure Cleveland User Group. A little bit about the group. We meet typically every second Wednesday of the month. The meetings are free of charge and open to the public, so feel free to invite friends and colleagues. And we cover a variety of topics related to Azure, whether it's infrastructure as a service, platform as a service, or software as a service. You can find all meeting information for both past as well as future meetings posted on meetup.com at the link listed at the bottom of the slide. We'd like to give a big thank you to our sponsors, PostSharp and DevExpress, for sponsoring the post-meeting prizes, which will be given away using the eval forms. We'd also like to thank the .NET Foundation for sponsoring the Meetup website, and NIS Technologies for sponsoring the virtual meeting space. In addition, we'd like to thank Genesis 10 for sponsoring a post-meeting prize, which will be given away and raffled off shortly afterwards. And Genesis 10 is presented here by Chris Libertine, and he'll be chatting with us just a little bit after the meeting and the presentation. Also, I'd like to thank Manning.com for a special offer, 35% off a selection of books. The link and the discount code will be provided in the chat window in just a little bit. Some general information. If you're joining us for the first time, please feel free to participate. As a matter of fact, participation is highly encouraged. And like I always say, the only stupid question is the one not being asked. So always jump in with a question or a comment. However, when not speaking, kindly ask you to mute your microphones just to avoid any background noise. And we want to keep it casual but organized, meaning we want to be able to jump in with questions, but at the same time, we want to give our presenter enough time to go through the demos on the slides. Lastly, the question on everyone's mind, is the meeting being recorded? Yes, it is, and it will be posted on YouTube in just a few short days. So for tonight's feature presentation, Practical Techniques in Prompt Engineering, RAG, and Fine-Tuning by BJ Allmon. BJ has 23 plus years of building software in web, bridge clients, CLIs, crypto, blockchain, working for a variety of different industries such as banking, healthcare, and marketing. And overall, he loves product strategy, discovery, and product delivery. And with that, let me turn it over to BJ. BJ, welcome to the Azure Cleveland User Group.
Sam and everybody, it's good to be here. Thank you so much for inviting me.
Sure thing, good to have you.
Yeah, I'll go ahead and share my screen. I will tell you that, believe it or not, I've 23 years of experience not in machine learning or RAG development. So clearly, if anybody tells you that they have many years of prompt engineering and RAG experience, they're lying. So, but no, it's good to be here. I've been, quite frankly, there's sometimes in that I've noticed in my career in software where there's moments in history that are pretty significant. And sometimes they awaken my engineer side, okay, because I'm a product manager by trade in the daytime, and at night my inner engineer comes out and I goof around with technology, and I like to see what's going on out there. And I think anybody who's a true engineer, they get their hands dirty, right? And that's how we learn, and that's how we grow. And I can tell you that what's going on right now is really kind of special. There's going to be a mess of apps out there that are going to be complete flops and disasters, just like blockchain, crypto, and fill in the blank, the dot-com boom. I lived through all these things. And I will tell you, every single time, the things that are amplified the most are train wrecks. But when the dust settles, you have solid apps out there doing wonderful things, and and solving interesting problems, and the right problems. The apps that are all the buzz and solve the wrong problems will go away pretty quickly after the dust settles, after the excitement and the buzz and all that. AI is very similar. People will get sick of just conversations with a prompt. and they're gonna that will get old really fast. But there's a lot of power in conversational apps, and I'm going to demonstrate some of that today. Not that I've been able to wield the beast like a pro. I'm probably about 6 months in on my development journey right now with machine learning, prompt engineering, RAG implementation, and fine tuning. I've been skimming that a little bit, and I have a little bit to show you about that, but not a lot of practical examples on that. And um, but yeah, so good to be here. I want to start with um, you know what these things are in general. So I know I've been following this group a little bit, and I've seen like what some of the topics have been and what some of the upcoming topics are. And it looks like a really great group you have here. So it's good to be kind of dialing in from the C-bus area, somewhat close. So we're like sister cities, I guess. Um, excuse me. So prompt engineering in general is a way to uh, contextualize and instruct an LLM to give you a response that is meaningful. So the easiest way to think about it in the engineering form from a software development perspective, this is the fastest feedback loop when you're trying to do machine learning, uh, 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 prompt engineering. The pure prompt engineering side of development without RAG, and I'll get into RAG and without fine tuning, is your fastest feedback loop on, am I doing the right thing? Am I on the right track? And the simplest way to think about it is this. Like if I go to a prompt, um, I can contextualize the experience. Okay. Um, I can say, um, you are a software development expert assistant in Java and Maven. I'll just say it in Java and Azure Cloud Services. I'm making something up right now. For question answering. And so right away, that just says, okay, great. You want to write, it's ready to receive feedback interaction now because I've contextualized the prompt with enough information to be able to just start interacting with the prompt. Okay. Um, so I can say, what are uh, what are some, let me do this. List the top 5 cloud services. Okay. Um, I kind of expected it to do something else, quite honestly. But that's where the prompt engineering, you get the fastest feedback, right? Like it didn't really, when I said, what are the top cloud services? Here are the top 5 cloud services. What I wanted it to give me was something more specific to Azure. So if I were to start that over, I could, well, let's just say now it's contextualized. I can drill into this and just say things like, well, go ahead and list, tell me more about two, right? And it knows, okay, you want to learn more about Azure. Okay. And so it's using history for contextualization, but it's also using that initial prompt. All right. So, and this is the craft. that would have failed miserably from a software perspective if I were to launch that. But you see how fast that feedback loop is. I know that I can go ahead and make a tweak to this to make it more contextualized better, so that when I go on to asking questions, from there, it's ready to answer the question, so I don't have to provide the context every single time. If that makes sense. So now I have it talking about Azure. So so maybe a better way would be to start, you are an Azure cloud expert assistant for question and for question answering tasks. I'm just curious as to what it would do if I asked it the same question. Or something similar. Yeah, so it's contextualized. It knows I'm talking about Azure. If I probably went back and asked that question, the top 5 cloud services, it probably would still give me back cloud service providers. Probably that was probably a bad question. But this is contextualization in a nutshell. This is prompt engineering in a nutshell, except for I'm just using something that is already just an open chat. Now, what I'll show you is, oh goodness gracious, is that here's a, for instance, in OpenAI, if you have an account here, you have the ability to go to like a playground and create an assistant, a code assistant. This is a bot I created here, and you can add in the instructions here. This is the same thing that I did at the beginning of that Chat GPT prompt. And so I can go ahead and
Hey, BJ, we
start
can't see your
asking it.
screen.
Oh, you can't see the
Are you
screen?
sharing your screen? Yeah, we can't see it.
Oh, weird.
Yeah, we lost you like 20, 30 seconds ago.
Huh. All right, let me reshare here. Sorry about that. Don't know what happened. So basically, like in OpenAI, you can do things like create assistants. Here's a code assistant, and this is where that initial prompt would go. And then when you use this code assistant, you're able to basically do the same thing, and you can play around with it in the playground and start asking it questions like if this was a chatbot on a website, right? So this is where you would play around with the prompt engineering side of things. So it's injecting this context into this playground right here. Okay. And so another example, what I would show you, and let me just go to, here's another example of that. Okay. And this is in the code perspective. So let me just kind of, wow, this refresh rate is not working on my laptop very well. Does that look okay right there? Is that big enough for everyone? Okay, so
Good.
this is a very basic. Did you say something, Sam?
I was saying it looks good.
Good. Okay, so this is super basic. By the way, this is a GitHub repository you can go to, BG Allmon, the GitHub, my GitHub repo. I have AI really basic examples there. There's folders for prompt engineering only, fine-tuning examples. I'll put slide decks here, including this one. And I'll throw some RAG stuff out there as well eventually. I just haven't got to that yet. But right now, what I'm going to show you is same thing, very basic, making a chat or an OpenAI client. So you can see I'm importing from OpenAI, the library. This is a Python library for OpenAI. This .env is part of initializing the environment. And all that really is I have an env file here that has my super secret OpenAI client key that if you don't have that, it'll tell you what the property is for convenience in the air. And then you can add that to your env file. And then all you have to do to load your environment variable is bring this in. So that way you're not pouring your client keys out in the public. One sec here. So what I'm doing here is I'm creating a stream response from this OpenAI client, okay, chat completions, and I'm creating a new instance of this. I'm throwing in the model I want to use. I can say ChatGPT 4 as well. 3.5 is turbo is slightly faster. The temperature is going to range from 0 to 1, and 1 is hot, and 0 is just dry. Think of it that way. Like it's 1 is going to be super creative. There's if in this case I'm passing some messages here with chat completions, and I'm saying the role is user, and the content is create a book of sarcastic dad jokes with chapters for cars, space, family, music, and food, with 10 jokes per chapter. And then I'm going to stream that with the streaming true, and then I take that stream response and I chunk over it and print it out as it goes. And so what I'll show you is that in play. So think of this. This is the contextualization here of what I'm doing. I'm telling it what I want, and then I'm streaming that. I'm going to go ahead and run this, and you'll just see this go ahead and start to stream. All right. Pretty basic, not very interesting, but pretty cool. Pretty cool to play with. You're using now, and you can do this, by the way, if you create a chatbot. I know and you're using OpenAI. There's a nice API that you can use with that to kind of basically do the same thing. You can also just, for instance, I'm just using the LLM, okay, interacting with the base GPT model here, 3.5 Turbo. And there we go. I got the book of dad jokes, horrible dad jokes. And so that's super, super basic. Now what I want to do is kind of show you this finished. Go ahead and clear this out here. This is kind of more in line with what we would see from a typical prompt engineering perspective. Again, I'm using Python for these examples. You could use whatever you want. There's a lot of different libraries. There's Java. I know Spring. I think Spring Boot now has a whole AI template stuff happening you can use. I don't know too much about that, even though I'm a Java. Probably most of my career has been in Java. I haven't been messing with any of the Java libraries. I've just been using Python because it's the most relevant language for examples out there today, and I figure that's pretty good to go with right now. And so this prompt is something I kind of used. OpenAI had an example in one of their playgrounds that was similar in nature, and I took but it was just in a playground. And I said, I want to build an app with this and see what happens. And this is just a terminal app. Okay, it'll be on the command line. And let me bring this up a little bit more so you can see it better. Okay, let's see. How's that? Okay. All right. And so what this is a customer service bot. Okay. And what we're doing is we are using OpenAI again. So I'm loading my key for my Open API key. And then I'm creating a class for this CS bot, and you can send it a query. There's a function here with a prompt. And the prompt is, you will be provided with customer service queries. Classify each query into a primary category and a secondary category. Provide your output into JSON format with the primary category as the key and the secondary category as the value. Primary categories are billing, technical support, account management, general inquiry. Secondary categories by primary category as the key, billing, unsubscribe or upgrade, add payment, blah, blah, blah. And I just go through the primary categories and add their secondary categories to it. So it builds that reference. And so this is just a little bit of prompt engineering. I messed around with this for a while to get consistent responses. And then what you can see here is I have this, query with prompt. So that I'll use in my chat completions that has the prompt and then the user query. Makes sense. And then what I'm doing here is there's some other attributes here for setting like max tokens and things like that. Could probably tune that even more so down. Tokens are just basically what you're sending and receiving to and from the LLM. I'm not super expert on that stuff, but what I'll say is there's a way to control that, and that, at least from an OpenAI's perspective, and probably other LLMs that have costs, tokens that you're sending back and forth are going to cost you money. So, and that's where, quite frankly, fine tuning comes in. This is really fast to change on the prompt and test it out real quick. Fine tuning, I would have to take this, create examples of what I want it to do, and then send, at least for each thing I want to do, at least 10 examples for for fine tuning to take it into effect. And that's good, but it also takes quite a long time to process. So it's the slowest feedback loop. RAG is somewhere in the middle, okay? And we'll get into RAG. So everything else here is just, this method right here is just going to return the content and in the way, hopefully, that I'm asking for it. There's no code here to format it in JSON. The only thing I have is a prompt, okay? And what I want to show, the reason why I'm doing this is because I want to demonstrate how you can use prompt engineering to provide the type of format that you want back for machine reading. Okay, so we want to use these responses sometimes for machine readable work. Okay, so this is just one of those examples. So there's a customer query here. Welcome to the customer service chat assistant. Type in your query here. So I need to change my last name in my profile. How do I do that? And so it comes back with a JSON response that is account management, update personal information. The reason why I'm showing you this is not so that you would give that back to the end user, but that you would actually do something with that and provide back something that makes sense to them. Oh, here's a doc, here's a link maybe, and that's where, for instance, maybe it is just in the LLM on the internet somewhere. But if you're a company building a chatbot, that's where maybe RAG comes into play. So RAG is really geared for real time or near real time, or quite frankly, just data that hasn't been on the internet for 6 months and probably isn't in an LLM. Okay. In other words, it could be like documents, product documents that, you have a product team that built a new product. Maybe it's the chatbot assistant. And I use this because this is a very overplayed example, and a lot of people understand this example and have this example even running in their company, even if it's early access or not quite prime time yet. And how do you get that? Hey, my team just published a feature, for instance, and make the chatbot aware of that. And then be able to say, oh, you're looking for how to do this. Well, here's how you interact with that new feature, for instance. So, there's a lot of cool stuff you could do here, just so you can see I'm not, providing back a weird, like, this is just really basic. There's no magic code here that I'm just printing the response from the client send query directly from the so this is the OpenAI client send query. That's the response. I'm just printing it. And so we could do another example just real quick. I'm locked out of my account and don't remember my password. So account management, password reset, super lightning fast responses on this stuff, right? For 3.5 is really fast. 4 is going to be a little bit slower with OpenAI, but it's also a little bit more robust and maybe has better answers. But for this type of stuff, 3.5 is perfect. It's fine. I've had good success with it overall. All right, so let me go back to the deck real quick here. Any questions before I move on from a prompt engineering perspective? We're going to continue to practice prompt engineering because it's core to like everything else. So, so let's talk about the fine tuning side of this. Okay. So fine tuning, basically is going to be your examples. And by the way, like I created all these images with DAL 3 through a prompt, which is kind of cool. Kind of neat to see that. I'm missing comments here. I think because I'm in the, can feel free to, let me look here, chat. Let me pull that open. And okay, let me go through here. Sorry, you all are so polite. You're asking your questions in chat, and I'm not looking at chat. I just expect people to just talk, but it's fine. And OpenAI was much more expensive than prompt tokens last time I looked. Oh, that's interesting. Paid rent. So my understanding on the fine-tuning side is that for style, the type of responses you want back, that initial cost of tuning it's kind of like a one and done thing, right? Where once it's tuned, you get a tuned model back. And I don't the I'll show you how I can take advantage of that model, but to me, it only makes sense if you can reduce, if you need more headroom for tokens. I know depending on the model you use, you get more tokens depending on your account and what level of account you have. You can get darn near unlimited tokens, or at least to where that problem goes away. But that's still going to eat into your costs. Where what I've learned, and if you go to the OpenAI fine tuning page, there's actually, I mean, it's pretty high level, but they give you some of the value props around fine tuning and why you would want to do it. So yeah. So my understanding is if I can move some of the context of the prompt to fine tuning examples versus giving examples in the prompt, that's going to reduce tokens. That's going to leave tokens for input, pure like creative input for what we want to do that's unique, or coming in from the user input. Maybe it's a conversational app, like ChatGPT or something. So I don't think that you're going to get charged for those tokens like that over and over again. And if you fine tune, apparently you get a way snappier response. It's a lot faster. So that's another differentiator. So you know you're definitely going to be paying for your LLM interactions, but from my perspective, you're tuning sometimes for speed too, and that there's value in that. So let me look here. Control the amount of tokens allowed in the response. Yeah, because response tokens are way more expensive. Yeah. You do not need JSON format for that. You can just tell it to format it into. I do not need. I'm not sure what Marshall's trying to say here. You do not need JSON format for that. You can just tell it to put the formatted response into blah, curly braces, or into, yeah, and use Python string strip and extract. Sure. Yeah, there's probably a lot of different ways to skin the cat there. I actually iterated on this quite a bit. I originally had Python doing a lot of heavy work, and I was like, I'd rather have see if I can tell the prompt to give me the format that I want. So I have almost no code. Because one of the other powerful things here is, being able to say, well, maybe I want that in YAML. And if I restart this, changing my password. So now it's in YAML, and that's a really easy injectable prompt change versus a code change. So this could be, think about this prompt. This is very static right now in my code because the way it's written. But think about the prompt being injectable, and probably should be. And there could be things, for instance, I could be injecting, for instance, these things as part of the runtime, or maybe there's some cache somewhere that I'm pulling this from, so that it's always up to date. So definitely some, yeah. Yeah, and I don't know if Marshall was here earlier. I'm just trying to wrap up the chat for a second here, but I did demonstrate the stream true over here on the um, sarcastic book creator. Feel free to check that out. It's on the GitHub repo. I don't know, Sam, if we could maybe post that or something, but all right,
Yeah,
so
absolutely. Feel free to share the link with me.
sounds good. Yeah, let me actually, I think I have that right here. I'll post that here. How about that? Sweet. Well, let's go back. We're going to dig in a little bit more here. Just look at real quick. This is a loader for fine tuning, and all this is going to do is I think they have a nice little file uploader. You can just do it manually, but I actually wanted to use code for this because I wanted to try to set up a CI/CD pipeline for this and make it a little bit more. I wanted to practice how would I plug this in into a real enterprise development lifecycle. So where when changes are made, things are tuned, RAG vectors are updated, prompts are cache are invalidated and set to new. All the things happen when software needs to change, as expected in a software development environment where you're pushing product out the door every day. So this is a job creator that they were nice enough to kind of expose this as an API, which is super helpful. And I have this really ugly JSON file that you can use to, for instance, give it some examples. Now, what I'll say is this didn't change my outcomes very well in this example because it's so basic. I need to work on a more complicated example, but I wanted to show you what that looks like for the most part. You're just basically putting in, role user content law and giving it examples, right, over and over again. And I actually had trouble with account auth providers. So I put extra lines in there for auth providers to try to create more priority around that one. And I couldn't never get that to work right for some reason. Some of the questions I was able to pose to this, I don't think we need to dig much into this, but the what I'll say is, I'm not, uh, definitely not expert level here on tuning at all, but definitely something to look into. And what I would say is, whenever you're doing any of these changes, and this is just a really practical uh, uh, thing to do, we want to make small little scientific changes. So if you're placing a bet that a fine tuning is going to save the day for something you're doing in the prompt, and you want to move that prompt out and into fine tuning examples so that we just have a new LLM version that is better, then I would definitely do some A/B testing on that and see if that's true. If your concern is cost, check and do the work, because I can't tell you if that's going to help you on cost or not until I know what one, I'd rather just see the data and see the evidence of that. So you want to A/B test that with lots of examples and interactions, and do those same interactions with the finely tuned model. Make sure we're evaluating those outcomes, and then making sure that okay, well, I cared about the cost, so how's that impacting our cost overall? How's that impacting performance, for instance, overall? Did it change the quality of responses? Did it have a negative impact, or is it just fine? or is it even better? It just depends on what you're trying to accomplish. But those are a few things that I would look into for every single change that I make. And this is the what I'll show you here real quick is that this is using a finely tuned model. Okay, this is going to use my account, so I can show this and not get in trouble because you'd have to have my API key to get to this model. Okay, so but this is how it looks like. I'm using GPT 3.5 Turbo, and you'd have to prefix it with this FT for finely tuned or fine-tuned model, and then this 0125 colon personal colon some random number or sequence of characters. So that's the finely tuned model that it provided for me, and then I was able to run the same app basically from there. And I'll just show you that running. My favorite question to make sure it's doing the right thing and stick it to context is to ask it, who won the 1955 World Series? And if you don't know that question, that's very disappointing. And so this app is very disappointing. But that's exactly what I want this app to do. So that's a general inquiry, and we don't really know what to do with that. So, and that's what we have it doing in here. So if you look, general inquiry unknown, I gave an example of that. And so it's doing the right thing. Hey, fine tuning's not so bad. All right. I think I'm done with this project. So now what I want to do is start talking a little bit about RAG. So RAG stands for Retrieval-Augmented Generation. And so what I like, the way I think about it is you're curating content that isn't currently available in the LLM, but or maybe it is, and maybe there's lots of versions of it. But you're curating that content specifically for precision context. Okay, so you're drawing a line around that context, that data that you're providing, like a vector database or a graph database of some sort, like Neo4j. I think is pretty popular for AI apps. But there's lots of different vectors. We'll talk about Stack a little bit here for a little bit, but we're augmenting the LLM with context. Okay, and that's the basic of what a RAG app does, and it allows us to get real-time data in there, streaming data, whatever we need to augment the LLM with. So here's a little bit of a high-level example of LLM Stack. My friend Nilanjan created this slide, and we delivered this at Code Mash this year in Sandusky, Ohio, at the Kalahari. And so we did an all-day workshop on RAG development, and it was a blast. We had a good time. But these are just some of the frameworks. So you got your LLMs, Llama 3. I would definitely check out Llama. I would check out Ollama, OLLAMA, which is an open source framework. Okay, I'm going to type it in here for you all. Is an open source framework for managing LLM models. And Llama is one of those models that it can work with along with others. including like Hugging Face and things like that. Frameworks, you got, your LangChain, ChatGPT, APIs, Llama Index, Python, do-it-yourself type stuff. You have your OpenAI APIs, your Hugging Face APIs, your Anthropic APIs. Anthropic pairs really well with LangChain if you wanted to do streaming. OpenAI has some built-in streaming that I showed you. There's all kinds of things you can do here. And then you have your vectors. This is your data store for your data pipeline coming in. Okay. So I'm kind of working backward a little bit here, but so you have your Pinecone cloud services out there that works well with AWS. Pretty sure Azure. Correct me if I'm wrong, Sam. GCP, Chroma, which is kind of like an in-memory or file-based vector database that I'm going to be using for my RAG example I'll show you, and then PG Vector. There's others, vector stores, and these things. I would say all of this slide is, we built this about 6 months ago. It's wildly out of date already. It's it's like when people realized we can build JavaScript frameworks for, more sophisticated things for for all kinds of things, and the JavaScript framework landscape blew up. So we have your data pipelines, and whatever your data pipeline, it doesn't really matter. It's just, there's ways to store to the vector store. And I'm going to get into this a little bit here. So think of your data pipelines as it's coming in as a PDF or JSON or a CSV file or whatever it is. We can split on that, the data up, and chunk it out however we need to embed it and store it. Okay. And the embeddings typically, I don't know if this shows that, but the embeddings typically are going to be embedded for, and I'll show you this, for OpenAI or for Llama or OpenLlama. And so that's optimizing the storage of the vector for those specific implementations. So if you swap out, for instance, what LLM you're using, you probably want to re-index the vector store for that LLM implementation. There's a question I want to answer. What's the difference between LL and LLM framework? Did you see that somewhere? I'm curious. Did I show that somewhere?
Sorry, you didn't show the difference, but I'm just wondering what add-on it provides, like the feature it provides from above the framework.
So the LLM is the actual large language model. Okay, so that is your AI large language model. That is basically a big probability machine right now, using the transformer GPT standard. That's where we get the GPT from. It's a transformer pattern. So the framework here are going to be different tools that can work with your LLM. So for instance, LangChain, which I'll show you, can work with multiple LLM models. For instance, I could use Google Gemini or OpenAI, like what ChatGPT uses, or I could use Llama. And I actually have an app that I have both Llama and OpenAI in use, which is kind of interesting. It's just because I'm testing both LLMs, and I was able to swap that out really easily with with LangChain. So
Okay, understood. Thank you.
yeah, no problem. Yeah, so here is how we would use all this stuff together. So we have a question that comes in, like maybe I have an interface in my CS prompt or in any RAG app. That question would be whatever the user's asking for a bot. It could be the bot interaction with the user, and the user types in something like ChatGPT and enter. That's where we're at right here. Incoming. And then basically what happens is context based on that input is retrieved from the vector, okay, and then provided into a context window in the LLM, presented and formatted in a way that the LLM can respond, and then that provides the response or the completion of that response. And so that's what I'm going to show you right now. Just make sure here. Okay, we're good to go. All right, so I'm going to show you a personal app that I've been working on. I have a Bible study app that I've been working on personally for my own learning, and hopefully everybody has learning going on. But I had a I started with a very simple interaction bot. Let me look for some of these things. Well, what I'll say is I wanted to test, using AI for real applications, right? Not just a chat GPT interface, but how do I take a response and do something with it? And that's where I really started. And so I made this. I had somebody. I was like, you can do all this really cool stuff, like get responses back in YAML or JSON or whatever you want, and for things that tasks, right? System tasks. And so and somebody was like, "Whoa, can you make a PowerPoint presentation?" I was like, "Probably." So I did that, and I'm going to show you what that looks like. And so this is, uh, from the, you know, prepare a presentation content from John 1 through 18 with content formatted in JSON. Create a few bullet points on each slide. Now, no human being is going to ever talk to ChatGPT like this, typically. Okay. I talk to ChatGPT actually like this, but most people don't use the prompt like this. They'd probably say like, "Hey, tell me about this thing," right? And what the point I want to make here is that anything I say here and it does, I can contextualize that in the background, right? So that a user could say, just tell me about this, right? And so that's what I was experimenting with writing the least amount of code. And actually, I only wrote, so I went ahead and hit enter. I only wrote enough code to actually just build the context. And so we should see it come up. Let me see here. Well, while this, oh, here we go. Okay, so hey, PowerPoint. Okay, so if you are super lazy and you don't like writing PowerPoints or creating PowerPoints, you could do something like this. I can theme this now. Now that it's in my thing, I can do all kinds of things with it. Put it in my typical PowerPoint format, whatever I like to do there, right? But what I did was I'll pull this up first. So based on the prompt, it gave me the format I wanted, okay, so that I can machine read that and actually generate a PowerPoint with that. So you can see it created the slides, the title for each slide. I gave it creative license to just make up whatever the slide title should be based on the content, and then the points for each slide, okay? And then what I do with that is I use this Python library I never messed with. And this took me like just a couple hours just to kind of figure out how do I do this, and so yeah, so and this is just has nothing to do with AI. It's just creating slides with this slide library, right? So it's nothing interesting, but the thing I wanted to point out is I'm able to use that machine format to be able to iterate over the points and create bullets, and the title to create a title, and the slides to create slides. Okay, so now here I'm using the same. This is very ugly code. It's come a long way. We'll get into the good stuff here pretty soon. But I want you to see that here the only difference is um, I'm using. Well, so the first thing is there's a lot of indexing going on here. And this is where we would like index differently. I'm not going to show you all this stuff right now because I have cleaner code that you can observe later. But just kind of interesting, I'm using here the vector store now, Chroma. I'm just seeing the time and I know I need to hurry a little bit more, giddy up. So anyway, so here we have the Chroma, and then I have a retriever, and then now and this is using lane chain. Now I'm creating a rag chain, and passing in that retrieved context to pass in formatted documents to the LLM. And then when I get the response, I'm taking that chat response, JSON, and I'm iterating over the data basically and creating the presentation. Nothing really interesting. All this code is just for the command prompt here. But okay. And then I did the same thing for documents as well. You can create documents. If I can do that, I can create a document. And so I'll run this real quick. It's not anything too interesting, but it's just, same kind of concept. I think here, yeah, same thing, keys, titles, sections, section titles, section content. And then here we go. Voila. I made it a little bit more interesting. I had to put in some Greek, Hebrew terms, things like that. And then again, I don't know why somebody would want to do this. The point was I'm taking a chat response and I'm doing something with it. That's the point, right? It could be a server to server side call. It could be back end processing. It could be whatever. There could be a situation where you're doing this. I don't know that I would do it this way. I'd probably have a web UI that just lets you export with some JavaScript framework that does that for you. I probably wouldn't do it this way, but this is cool. This is cool. And I was able to do it consistently, right? I had to dust this code off and look at it just to make sure it still worked. This is not something I would recommend probably for reality, but now I'm going to show you kind of where that evolved, and this gets into something I'm calling ChatGSPL. And I wanted to show you the simple indexer I used here. And this is just some PDF I grabbed that, well, actually, I think I have it up. It just shows like the Bible. This is interesting content because it's like the way it's formatted is kind of interesting. For each chapter, it's like a line item, and then it has like, all the so this is it. And that took a little bit of time to import. Not very much, but you just split over that. There's a, a Python PDF loader you can use, and then if you're really good at machine learning and knowing all these args that you can pass in for tweaking things, you can mess with this. But basically, I'm just keeping it really simple and just splitting over that loader. Whatever the loader does, I'm letting it do it. Not very sophisticated way to load data into a vector. I'm learning that now, and I'm building more structured formats now, and I'm indexing more structured formats in a way that I want it to be indexed, so I can grab documents whole hog that makes sense. So yeah, this is a whole science in itself. You could probably talk about data loading for weeks and at this meetup. So here I'm actually using Ollama embeddings and injecting it into Ollama, but using Chroma for the vector. But the example I'm going to show you is actually using OpenAI. I can use the Ollama version as well and show you that. But that was a really small change. So here we have some basic things going on here. Logging. This is a Flask app. This is a Python Flask app. I'm also using Socket.io with that, which emits data to the front end as it becomes available, so I could potentially do streaming. If my chat response uses streaming, I could take advantage of that. As I have that all hooked up, I'm actually just using it to create a more one-page web app type of feel. So I'll show you that here in a second. And then you can see here I'm bringing in my embeddings, our OpenAI embeddings for my vector store, so that we're set on the language. And then I'm getting the retriever for that to use with. I cleared out. I was using a multi-query retriever, and I stopped using that. But basically, for the RAG chain, this is what's used. Here's the contextualized question, okay, the retriever and the docs, and then so what I'm going to show you here is, there's the prompt I created. I'm telling it to build out. The key thing I want you to see here is that I'm telling it to always format responses with HTML, responsive HTML on top of that, which is good. And then being specific about use it for everything, for headers, for titles, bold titles, italic, underlined, and building tables. I wanted to build HTML tables for me. So this is getting push. This is testing models, basically, is what this is doing. But I may be able to use something like this, right? There's definitely some more instructions here I'm not going to get into. Obviously, too, like context matters. So, if somebody asks about the World Series, say, I'm here to help you study, that type of stuff. Just like the general query unknown for the CS bot. Here, our chat template is used to be able to contextualize and bring in chat history as well, and use that chat history to continue to build, so that there's an interactive response conversation kind of that can happen, similar to a chat bot where it's like, list something, oh, tell me more about number 2, and it has a context to know what you're talking about, doesn't start over, which is annoying if you don't do that. Always having to provide context. Again, I'm using chat 3.5 here, GPT 3.5, temperature 0, because I don't want it to be creative. I want it to stick to the text. So that's pretty much all I want to talk about here. The rest is just plumbing for the app to work, and it's pointing to this index file here. Now this, what I'll say is I have a lot of stuff going on here because I have literally, this is the worst HTML file you'll ever see. This is not a practical AI example at all. This is just horrible HTML, and it's because I'm just starting to build this right now, and all the CSS is inline here in the file, and all the JavaScript is inline here on the file. And so, and even what I'll say is I put a static chapter of the Bible into this app so that I could just have it on the screen as an example. Okay, like just that problem's been solved. There's lots of apps out there that do that, that have, you can interact with the book or something and paginate on the book. We know how to do that. That problem's already been solved. I didn't feel like I don't want to solve that problem right now. What I want to solve is, how do I interact with that text? That's all I want to prove. So this is an easy way, a practical way to not have to build the whole thing to be able to do that. So Travel Light. So here is the actual code. We have a toggle button for the chat, conversation chat. And then there's literally nothing. There's an empty div for the content that it's going to produce. Okay, so this is all unbound. There's no format except for what I kind of described in the, but the response is going to get injected into a div that's just empty. Okay, and I have a summarize button too that I'm going to show you. So here we go. Here's that chat button. You can talk to it, do some things. For instance, let me just give you one example here. We'll do a couple things here. Like this is provide a table of all Jewish festivals, blah blah blah. So you know, and I told it to even create columns for certain things that I want it to do, just to see, you know, providing me some things. So there we go. It's kind of interesting. I told it to provide a table of all the Jewish festivals found in the Bible, create columns for the festival description, scripture reference, and Hebrew terms. For the Hebrew terms, and add the term, origin, spelling, pronunciation, and link to the Strong's concordance reference that would open up in a new window. So I'll do this, Shabbat. There it is. Pretty cool. All right, so this is HTML. And I could probably copy edit inline and say, make the table header background color purple. We'll see what happens. I don't know what's going to happen here, but pretty cool little interactions. But this is come a long way from the little chat app. So there we go. Like that's ugly, but it works. Okay, so another thing that I experimented with was, wow, let me try, and this is pretty cool. Provide a detailed list regarding the arc of the testimony. Provide a title, detailed summary of exegesis, content, and culture. Add the following image at 40% its size and float the image right and in line with the detailed list after the summary. And let's just see what happens. But again, no normal human being would ever ask anybody for that. But here we go. Pretty interesting, right? This is pretty cool. This proves something to me, right? I'm just getting a fast feedback loop. This is using the context of the app's already provided prompt that's in the background, but also context that I'm providing to the prompt as we go, right? So Like that could influence, I could say, well, you know what, if that works, I could move this back to the prompt. So even interacting with the prompt, I could move it to the prompt. I could move the prompt to the fine tuning if I needed to. So this is that trifecta as well of like prompt, RAG, and fine tuning, right? So now like I have this other feature where it's like summarize. So summarize is going to come in, and all this is doing is creating a little button that injects context, okay? And I'll show you what this does just real quick. The button,
Where did that image come from?
so the image, I'll show you where it came from. It came from my input. So look, provide a list. This is the arc input. See this? And if you go here, this is what I pasted in. I literally pasted in this whole thing. But imagine if I had images in an app that you could add to the page. This is very similar to like insert image. We have some stock images or something. You could say, yeah, I want that image. So that's how I would maybe interact with this, and with the prompt with the AI side is I could have it generate responsive HTML, for instance, that's guarded. There's some guards to this, but I'm able to do some pretty cool things with that. The other thing too is I just clicked that summarize button, and here's what it did. So all I did was summarize. This is the text I selected, Genesis 1, and then that summarize button came up, and I clicked it, and then here's what the prompt's doing. Provide a study with a few points, cross-references, Greek and Hebrew terms with origin, spelling, and definition, and appropriate title for the following text. And so what it did is created, and I have that right here. So in this summarize function in JavaScript, all I'm doing is I'm taking that input, question value input. So this is what I'm passing to my server-side function, okay? That is going to hit the AI. And I'm just adding this, I'm just hard coding this right now, but I would probably create a new function on the server side called summarize. Right now I'm overloading my existing chat, which isn't good. It's horrible. Like that I shouldn't do that. But I'm just telling you. And then I'm adding the text I selected. So this is just, I like quick feedback loops, and I want like answers really fast. And so then I go back and I refactor and make it better. And so what this did is tell me enough that this is going to work, right? I can summarize stuff, and it did what I wanted it to do, provided the cross references down here. And then I can probably go down here. If I can do that, I can do this. Where let's just take a look at this real quick. Let's take this one. I'll just do this whole last part here. Well, we'll just do this. Okay, so it's going to summarize a specific section. And this is also pretty interesting. So here, okay, so creation of man in God's image. That was, I highlighted this text right here. Okay, and so it brought this back, and it brought back Teslim. I think that's how I say that. And so, and it brought back some good references here. And then I'm going to dig into that. So cross-reference the response that came back, or summarize the summarized response. And so I can dig in more and more and more, right? So I'm using this for study, and you could apply this to a lot of different things, right? And it's a way, so I can interact with this content here because it has that context. So maybe I could say, tell me more about that first reference. And it would probably know this. Yep, see? So it has the context. So I'm injecting the same context, but I was very generic and I was able to just have a simple conversation with it, right? And so very powerful, using history, context into the prompt, overloading the prompt. What did somebody call that one time? Stuffing the prompt is what I've heard. I've heard a term that stuffing the prompt. Can't remember who said that, but this is really all I had to share. I know we're at time, and I know Sam, you had some things. Any questions about this stuff? What I'll say is, I think this is such a neat time in technology. I'm not a product engineer every day for my day job. I'm a product manager, but I'm an engineer at heart. I've been working with this stuff for 6 months now, and I'm pretty impressed. And I can see a lot of potential in how to save time. Things that this thing can do that would take, well, I think of the old, for instance, search implementations we used to have to build when I was an engineer with all this stack to be able to do some of the things that this is doing. Oh my goodness. Has anybody used any of these old search tools? And I mean, this is amazing. And I've done a lot of stuff. I've quizzed it. I've ingested books, and I've quizzed it, and it's come out with great answers. And it just, there's a lot of cool things you can do with this.
I have a question about your.
Yeah.
I've used ChatGPT and Bing and Gemini, and I used them to generate some HTML and some JavaScript. I tried to challenge it to produce a scientific calculator, and none of them could quite get it to work. But you seem to be able to prompt it, and then it generates HTML on the fly. Is that available in every browser or just the Mac? Is that like available in the Chrome browser, or would you expect to be able to update the HTML that as a response to your prompt in any of the browsers, like on Windows 10?
Yeah. So because look, this is pure. What I'm printing out here is pure chat response. So let me just show you in the code real quick. What you'll see is here, I'm printing out the question, and then I'm printing the result from the invoke. And that's what you see here, down here. So this is from the response from the LLM, you're getting pure responsive HTML. Now,
so it's formatting the answer with HTML bold and HTML indents and all that?
Yes, all the stuff. Now, here's the thing. What I can do, and I've also had it auto-generate IDs and things like that. And I also am styling elements that are on the page, and I can tell it to, I can contextualize it with style or classes and all kinds of things, right? So I can, in that conversational app, I know I can overload the style too, but I could also not allow input like that and guard it, right? Where you're not allowed to override the style. But the cool thing is that one thing I did was I took the standard table and I was like, whenever there's a table, I always want every other row to be highlighted, like a light gray or something like that. And so, there's so many things you can do to interact with that HTML, but it generally has done quite well.
Where is the text of your prompt that you inject to tell the LLM to generate HTML formatted response?
Right here. Always. So actually, I do a couple things. Always format the response as responsive HTML, and do not use other forms of markup. Because if you don't say that, it's prone to want to add in wiki markup, which is interesting.
The 2 dots to bold and things like that.
Yeah, yeah.
Mhm.
And then I get really specific on examples, like each response should be contained within a div that contains a generated ID, incremented integer starting with section 1. So it's there's probably a lot of different ways to do that. But also always format responses with responsive HTML for everything, including but not limited to lists, bold titles, headers, italic, underlined, and building data tables. So because I wanted to be specific that I wanted to use HTML for all these things that I care about in my app. And then I do some other things too with that format, like always use the input question as the title for each chat response. Although the summary, I'm telling it to just come up with a title. When you summarize, I'm overloading that and saying, I want you to come up with a title that's appropriate. So, yeah. So anyway, kind of interesting. Any other questions, Sarah?
I'm curious, BJ. Great presentation. I really like this Bible app that you built. In terms of just documentation, you got any recommendations for references or I guess other information sources you found valuable?
Yeah, you know what? I feel very much helped by the LangChain documentation is great, especially in the RAG, because you're going to get the prompt side along with LangChain for RAG apps, where you're interacting with a vector that maybe is your own special data that you care about. Maybe it's spreadsheets. Maybe you're running a business, and you want to talk to your data. Tell me all the clients who I haven't contacted in the last 5 days, or whatever. Who hasn't used my service, or their contract's coming up soon.
Yeah.
Or going to expire. This is you want to be able to talk to your data, and a lot of sometimes it's private data. You don't have. That's where RAG really shines. And so using LangChain, their documentations, for me, like that's where I went for a lot of stuff. LangChain, when I was testing out OpenAI, and I still am because I have lots of credits left. OpenAI's uh, the their LLM and their API side. I don't subscribe to ChatGPT or anything like that, but I do have an OpenAI API license, and that lets me use ChatGPT for if I want to. I'll just create a bot for it.
Yeah.
So without needing a license. But what I would say is like their documentation is pretty good. Sometimes there's some dated things or things that are out of whack, but there's just so many good examples out there to learn from and just cherry pick and use and then build off that, like for your own purpose, and that's what I try to do is just take these examples on LangChain, OpenAI, Llama has a lot of good stuff, and Ollama, and some of the other frameworks out there, and just taking those and then saying, okay, what can I do to kind of take this example, get it up and running, and then learn from that. And what I would say too is like this example right here, no shame here. I used ChatGPT to basically interact, and I interacted with ChatGPT for basically all of this code. I've been out of HTML development for a decade. Okay, so I've never was a strong Python developer. Tab delimited languages were not my favorite thing. But like what I'll say is like I'm very impressed with where we're at with AI and being able to like the productivity curve is crazy. If I can do this, anybody can do this.
Awesome.
So that's
Well,
how I feel about it. Yeah.
Let me back
Awesome.
you up with that. I didn't know any Python until ChatGPT taught it to me, and then I developed a chatbot using the OpenAI API using uh, ChatGPT to help me write it. Although it
Yeah.
didn't have the latest API information, I eventually figured it out, and I got
Yeah.
as far as generating image image generation using the DALI on OpenAI, and then I ran out of tokens. But I would like to
Yeah. Sounds about right.
I would like to suggest to you. Someone pointed out to me the L, LM Studio. It's an app
Yes.
that'll run on Windows, and since you're using OpenAI, it has a mode that allows you to port the local LLM on your computer to a local port in your browser or computer, and then you can use your Python scripts and OpenAI library to call the local LLM on your computer instead of the OpenAI API. Did you get all that?
I did. I
Yeah.
did.
All right.
Yeah.
So I don't have a
Yeah, that's
computer
helpful.
that will run that LM Studio at this point, but if you did that, you should probably tool around with that and try to load one of the llamas or the llama 2 or llama 3 small or one of the quantized things and see if you can get sufficient results on some of your stuff. I don't think you're going to get the HTML Bible examples, but who knows? But if you could do a
Sure.
presentation on what you find out with that, that would be interesting.
Yeah. So I was trying to look. I don't think I have. So here's Olama. Um, and they have, like I said, a lot of examples here because I had to look at this to port my app to it. Because I do have Llama running locally. So let me just go here. So okay, so like this is Olama, and the beautiful thing about Olama is that it does run locally. This is such a great tool for development. And
Hmm.
if you can use Llama, for instance, for your production as well, you have a one-to-one between your development environment that runs local and it's private and fast, right, with your production environment. So to me, I think Olama would be a great topic for this group, and it is definitely you can create your own chat GPT experiences with it. There's a web UI for this as well. Um, very, very powerful. But here, uh, who won the 1955 World Series? And so this is Olama running locally on my machine. Uh, Actually, wait a second. Is this okay? Yeah, this is this is the right thing. Yeah. So very cool. Uh, this is using the llama. Let me. Oh wait. Let, actually, it's by and then Olama list. And so I have a couple models on here, and these models are local to my machine. Okay, and then I can say Olama run um, llama 3. And then there we go. I'm in llama 3 right now, and I can
So
ask
do
it
you happen
cool
to
questions.
know, are these quantized? That looks like they're less than 7 GB, so they must be quantized down to like four bytes, 4 bits or something. Do you know about that?
Yeah, so llama 3 was 4.7 gigs. But here we go. Hey, look, it knows about your user
Oh,
group.
look at that.
That's pretty cool.
That's cool.
So anyway, yeah, definitely play around with Olama. Thank you for bringing that up. Um, it, I'm trying to migrate to this right now. So I wasn't prepared to talk about it tonight, but I definitely uh, was interested in um, uh, adding it. I just didn't have time to. We don't have enough time to jam all this stuff in. That is a topic in itself. The Olama framework and creating your own LLMs with it because it's a completely open LLM as well, Llama, and you can so free. It's free. The token issue kind of goes away, which is great. Well, I mean, you still have to deal with tokens, but like the cost of that looks a little bit different with Llama. So anyway, definitely check
Awesome.
that out for sure.
Yeah, thanks both you guys. Thank you.
Yeah, thanks for bringing that up. Anything else?
I want to bring up. I know you're aware of the Gemini, but I've been using mostly Gemini last month or so, and I've been using the API and also the AI Studio that Google AI has put out, and I've been very impressed by the intelligence of Google's Gemini 1.0 and 1.5, and it does pretty good, reliable Python coding. So I probably would be using that mainly to try to if I were to try to do some of the things that you're doing, particularly with the HTML, I'd probably be using Google Gemini. Have you used the Gemini API?
I've not yet. Yeah, I've been so there are so many things I want to try. Too many things, too little time. And so what I would say is I've heard great things about Gemini. I've also heard bad things about Gemini. I'm using Chroma as a vector database, and I've heard awful things about it, but it's serving my purpose for now until I get a better vector database. But I did set up a Pinecone uh, login, and I'm getting ready to try to test out Pinecone and migrate. But I'm also testing out Olama as well. So yeah, I think here's the thing. Here's what I noticed right away. Uh, um, Evaluate cost, evaluate performance, evaluate quality. Are you getting the kind of responses? When I went from OpenAI to Llama, my prompt was bad news bears. It was really, really bad. The responses I was getting back, it wasn't listening to me. I have to learn how to talk to it in a way that, so basically if you swap out LLMs, you better believe that you're going to have to re-engineer your prompt, re-engineer your fine-tuning, all that stuff. So that's why you have to do that very carefully. I wish the code is beautiful. I was able to swap it out no problem, right? Technically. But from a usability perspective, it didn't work great. I think another good topic, Sam, maybe using like eval or some framework for testing, regression testing. So you can make LLM changes or RAG framework changes or whatever without fear that you're going to break your expectations. And so, and that's really, really what I would say is that's another place that I want to grow because right now I'm starting to build a real app, and I'm building this thing, and I want to have this thing available eventually, just for people to use if they want to use it. So, but I have to put some testing into it to make sure that I'm building a quality product, and it has to be production worthy. So it has to be cost effective. But it needs to scale and be responsive. And so I'm looking at all these factors, but it's like there's so many. I mean, the dust is going to settle. The great frameworks are going to shine. The most cost-effective frameworks are going to be figured out. And even OpenAI just 2 months ago or a month ago reduced their prices by half. You know what that's a sign of, right? It's a sign of more. There's more now. There's a lot more options, and that's because it's exploding right now. Okay, so don't quote me on the half thing. I'm pretty sure it was pretty significant, but like on using the models, I know 3.5 was like half, but it was like pretty significant. I don't know about 4 and stuff like that, but there's a lot of adjustments being made in the field because there's a lot more players, a lot more frameworks coming on. a lot more capability, and
newer
a
versions of
lot
each
more.
one.
There's a lot more cloud abstraction too happening, where there's managed services even, or there's going to be stuff that's going to be available in 6 months that is going to be blowing our minds, as far as ease and just convention over configuration and all the things we like from a development perspective.
Right.
So.
Well
If there's
said.
no hurry, can I ask you a kind of a broader question, non-technical almost?
Yeah.
I really think that the AI is going to drive down the value of human intelligence. I mean, I think a lot of people are going to lose their jobs in like middle service or telephoning or customer service, but I think also that people like you are going to be less valuable because more and other people can get things done with less intelligence or less college or less. So how do you think about that in the long term and in like a human evolutionary scenario where people with jobs that can't be robotized or turned into AI might have better, might reproduce more and things like that?
Yeah, I think that's a great question, and I don't know that I have a very robust answer for that. I don't even. I've heard people say, well, it it's going to be something that there's a productivity curve that is great for engineers, for instance, and and for people, it's utilizing AI for good applications. We know there's going to be automation and some things capabilities that we didn't have before, and that could mean jobs look different, of course, like with any technology movement. But I've heard people say, like, well, be somebody who knows how to wield AI versus, kind of backing away from it because that's what's happening, right? It's the reality. It's a reality that is embracing. We have to embrace it or get ran over by it. But my thought is I want to try to do good things with it and explore and try to bring value to my life and other people's lives with it, and hopefully if I do that, I won't be short on work. But I do agree. I think it's a disruptive type of technology too, like technologies can be. Um, but I think, and I don't think humanity is all that great in wielding power like that. So I would expect there to be a lot of hurt people from it as well. And that's unfortunate. But hopefully we can do the right thing. I think uh, everybody here on this call has the decision to make good decisions with AI, but at the same time, you may be looking at how do we save money and how do we operate more efficiently. And if it's your business, you'd probably want to do that too. So I kind of understand that perspective of, well, if I can just automate this somehow and this person doesn't have to, like, an example is our the docs team that I work with are able to, like, translate documents with AI now for different languages, and then we just have people that can speak that language kind of review and just make sure things look good, that know our products. And so man, the work that used to entail was severe, and but that probably took out some different language speaking folks' jobs, right, to translate those documents. So um, that's an example of where that disruption, to your point, um, can take place. And so yeah, I think we always have to be kind of figuring out how can I be valuable and grow and learn, and hopefully people that get shaken up can stand up somehow, and move on.
So thanks again, BJ. Great presentation. If I may just have some concluding slides that I wanted to share. If you'll notice, if you look over in the chat window, there are several links that we'll be going through in just a little bit. But first, I wanted to turn the floor to Chris Libertine. Chris is from Genesis 10. Overall, he's a great guy that I've known for many years. And tonight he has a message for us, as well as a sponsorship prize. So with that, Chris, the floor is yours.
Yeah, thanks, Sam. Appreciate it. I'll promise to keep this brief since I know we're over a little bit of time, but it was a great conversation, and thanks, BJ, for the insightful presentation. Special shout out to Sam for his continuous efforts in organizing, events and groups like this. Having known Sam for many years, from pre-COVID, where we used to, host these meetings, in person, to now seeing this grow since COVID, and being able to make this a vibrant, online community. I think it's great because we get to bring different, presenters in to kind of, go over different, cutting edge topics. So at the end of this, I know Sam will select someone, as the individual that wins the gift. It's just a $50 gift card to Amazon. So if you do win, please email or put your email in the chat so I can send that over to you by tomorrow. But yeah, just a brief introduction. My name's Chris Libertine. I represent Genesis 10. We're a leading IT staffing and solutions organization that specializes in, obviously, IT talent staffing, IT creation, upskilling, and then flexible workforce solutions. We've been around for over 25 plus years. We're constantly been recognized, best in staffing by our clients, by SIA, and featured in Business Insider and US Today for best CEO in the business. We're also recognized as the largest disability-owned enterprise within the IT staffing space in North America, which allows us to be as a diverse supplier to aid some of our, companies that we partner with within their DE&I initiatives and goals, which is great. I've been in the IT staffing solution space for over 10 plus years. Although I'm based in Cleveland, we operate throughout North America, and then we have some offshore centers in Romania and Poland. Obviously, the state of IT staffing and just the IT landscape in general is undergoing significant transformations influenced by technology advancements, AI-driven changes in workforce demographics, to evolving business and market needs. So whether you're curious about the market, seeking new career opportunities, or your team and company are exploring workforce solutions, I'd be delighted to add you to my network and engage in conversation. So feel free to, message me on LinkedIn or connect with me, afterwards. But that's just my small tidbit that I want to mention. But again, I appreciate the time, Sam, and it was a great presentation.
Likewise, we appreciate your sponsorship and your support, Chris. And it's always good to make contact with a recruiter, because you never know when there's going to be a need. And also, another thing that I wanted to mention, I had worked with Chris in the past, and being a recruiter, he is not one to be pushy, to be constantly pursuing someone, but rather makes contact, finds out what's a good fit, and if the market has a position that's available, he'll connect you. Otherwise, it's not a persistent, pushy type of person. So it's always good to have Chris with us and to have that relationship. So thanks again, Chris. Appreciate it.
Thank you, Sam.
Can I ask Chris a question?
Sure.
On your LinkedIn, you talk about inviting people to hone your expertise in areas like deep learning and generative AI, and then there's a link which I haven't gotten to. What is your company offering in this respect?
Yeah, let me pull that up because I don't know what
I quoted it in the chat, but I don't know what it is yet.
I'm not too familiar with that. So
was that something you're offering, or just something you tweeted, retweeted?
Oh, that was just an article that I posted.
Okay. So can you explain what you do? at Genesis 10 for in terms of with the generative AI?
Yeah, so my organization, we work with, Fortune 100 organizations to startups, within workforce solutions, right? So that could be just, staffing a person just from a direct placement standpoint to helping develop if there's a transformation going on to new technology, to obviously AI is such a newer area where some companies are investing heavily in it, some companies aren't, right? So it just depends on the company that I work with. Or the clients that we work with. But in general, AI is not going anywhere. It's going to continuously grow. So for me, it's just to continuously improve my knowledge of it for my customer base and understand what they're utilizing it for, and what's the right technology within the AI space. Because we know there are going to be some organizations that invest in the right technology and the wrong technology. So for me, it's just to be part of groups like this to continue to learn is important for me to continue to grow. Like, someone mentioned earlier, hey, is this going to take away, people's jobs? That's in every space. That's not just in IT. That's, in every area. So I don't know if that answered your question or not.
So do you work as kind of like a headhunter then, or do people come to your company, or how does that work?
Yeah, so I work more within like business development. I have a team underneath me of high qualified recruiters that more are the headhunters. I more work with clients to understand the solution that would make most sense for them, and then how we could develop that from offshore capabilities to onshore capabilities to staffing their internal teams. Especially now the way the world is, and people staying at jobs lesser and organizations re-swizzling. We're able to help those organizations, but we're also able to help contacts. So like Sam mentioned, for me, it's just networking with individuals. If it's helping you understand what the market's like in your space, what's your goal in the next couple of years, I can kind of help develop a strategy for you. But that doesn't mean I'm going to be able to help place you right away. It's more about having that communication and relationship where, I can give you advice or help you if there's a need at one of our customers or within my network.
And do you offer career guidance to people who are potentially able to work in the field? For example,
Yeah.
I may be competent to do some API work to a limited extent, but I don't necessarily know whose job I would be suited to work in, because I'm not ready to go, corporate exactly. But do you have like a evaluation test or something like that?
Yeah, depending on the type of role, we do have evaluation tests, but we also have like clients that maybe need someone for 10 hours a week in specific skill sets or areas that, maybe it's not a full-time job if that's what you're asking. But yeah, I do provide, career advice in areas of, hey, what I know, but I don't know everything. I like to tell people that, and that's important to know. So I can do my best to help out anyone here or anyone in your network that's looking to continue to grow their career, maybe in an area that they're just tapping their toes into and trying to find a way to make that their career in the future. I'm welcome to have that type of conversation.
Okay. Thank you.
Excellent. Thank you, Chris.
Yeah.
Wanted to continue on briefly. So the links that I posted in chat, there's a link to the YouTube channel. If you would please subscribe to that to get upload notifications when the video is uploaded. Likewise for my blog, which we'll cover in just a little bit, that has technical events. Again, you can subscribe to that and get notifications. And last but not least, the link to the eval forms. So that will be used for the raffle prizes, for both the prizes from Genesis 10, as well as the others for the licenses from DevExpress and PostSharp. So all those links are posted in chat. And then as far as events, on May 15th is the Akron Women in Technology Group, and they're going to be having a presentation on Copilot, which will be a perfect dovetail to this presentation. On May 16th is the Greater Lansing User Group for .NET users, and that's going to be happening on Thursday, May 16th. And then on May 22nd is the Cleveland C# user group. Currently don't have a speaker lined up yet. However, not giving up hope. I'm trying to maintain the cadence of having a monthly meeting for both Azure as well as the C# user group. With regards to conferences, on June 27th through the 28th is the Kansas City Developer Conference, also known as KCDC. And then on July 26th is Cincy Deliver, that will be happening in Cincinnati, Ohio. So those links are available on my blog. And last but not least, should you have any questions, feel free to reach out to me, snasser@nistechnologies.com. You can also find me on Twitter @SamNasser. The link to my blog once again. And if we're not connected on LinkedIn, I invite you to do so. And so with that, thanks again to BJ, thanks to Chris, and thanks to all who attended. And look forward to seeing you all at next month's meeting. Good night, everyone.